Thank you for having me here. It's wonderful to be here and nice to see everything that you're doing. And I'm really excited to be here over this next week and do projects. And it's nice to see Mitch again. And I'll give a warning that something is weird with my computer just a little while ago. Some of the videos weren't playing, so if my fancy PowerPoint doesn't work, then I'll do something else.
Gracias por traerme, es bueno verlos acá a todos. Estoy agradecido de poder hacer proyectos acá y de ver a Mitch de nuevo. Y les quiero dar una advertencia. Les quiero dar una advertencia que algo pasó que los videos no se reproducían en mi computador. Entonces, si mi super PowerPoint no funciona perfecto, los advertí.
Okay. I'm going to show some of my projects, and I like to think that they are inspired by doing things the wrong way.
Voy a mostrar mis proyectos que están inspirados en hacer las cosas de la manera incorrecta.
I'll show videos of this project called Outrun.
Voy a mostrar videos de este proyecto llamado Outrun.
I hope I'll show a video. Nope.
Hi, I'm Garnet Hertz. I'm a research scientist in informatics. The project started with thinking, what would it be like if this driving arcade game could actually drive? There was a custom piece of software, actually a number of pieces of software that run here, that look in front of the car, try to interpret what features there are in front of the car. In this case, it looks specifically for roads, and then it draws that road shape in the style of the original video game. So this software that's running looks like the old video game, but it's actually an augmented reality type of system that tries to make the real world look like a video game from the 1980s.
I'm Walt Scotty. I'm the research director for the Center for Computer Games and Virtual Worlds here at the University of California, Irvine. At this point, it's more of an exploration, it's an experiment. But one of the things that's starting to arise from it is whole new ways of thinking about how game-based virtual worlds can be embodied into physical devices in order to create new experiences. And one of the things that may come from the Outrun project are new ways of associating, say, game-based therapies for people who might be limited to electric chair-assisted mobility. So, like kids who are have limited ability, quadriplegic or what have you, may be able to take advantage of some of this technology if we can get it embodied in, rather than the form of an arcade machine, also in the form of a powered wheelchair. So that's something, an exciting follow-on that we see to this project.
It is a bit of an unconventional project, and I think it's a testament to the atmosphere and creativity of UCI and computer science that something like this can be done, and something that can be done that really has never been done like this before. So for me, it's an exciting place to be in to work, that I can do work like this.
Okay, so the summary to be translated. It's, as you can see, it's an old video game that is combined with a golf cart. Oh.
Our researchers targeted at.
So it's a old video game combined with a golf cart.
Don't worry, we'll fix it.
Perdón. Para resumir, lo que se mostró es un viejo videojuego combinado con un carrito de golf
and custom software that looks in front and finds roads and makes the real world look like the 1986 video game.
y software customizado que ve las calles y las traduce a la visualidad del videojuego de 1984, right? 1986.
And this was paid for by a university that was starting a video game center.
This was paid for?
Yeah.
Y esto fue financiado por la universidad que estaba haciendo un centro de videojuegos.
Related to Mitch, finding people with too much money.
Relacionado con Mitch, encontrando personas con mucho dinero que gastar.
Okay, now I'm going to show another project related to electronics and children that I'm doing in Los Angeles.
Ahora voy a mostrar otro proyecto relacionado con electrónica y niños que estoy haciendo ahora en Los Ángeles.
Our research is targeted at engaging women and minority groups through circuit bending workshops in electronics.
Circuit bending is the creative short-circuiting and manipulation of electronic devices, such as battery-powered children's toys, to create new musical instruments or sound generators.
In these workshops, students learn how to disassemble toys, how to work with electronics, and how to customize the devices with switches, knobs, and light sensors.
We authored an innovative instructional guidebook to introduce students to circuit bending in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and have held workshops in Los Angeles, Pasadena, Irvine, and Berlin to test and refine our curriculum. We are currently translating our guidebook into more languages, creating a kit for students and teachers, and envision this project being put into a mobile app, a customized lowrider taco truck that offers workshops throughout communities in Southern California. The combination of a clearly designed guidebook, the leveraging of artistic and musical creativity, and low technical requirements contribute to the strong success of this initiative in science, technology, engineering, and math education.
Cool.
So this project takes something that's normally called circuit bending. And I've seen lots of, there's some toys and things that you've done here in Santiago that are very similar.
Este proyecto toma lo que es conocido como circuit bending. Veo que aquí en Santiago están haciendo algo bien similar.
And the idea here is that I had applied for a grant from the National Science Foundation in the United States to try to see if this could be put into schools.
La idea aquí es que postulé a una beca. What's it called?
National Science Foundation.
Una beca Fundación Nacional de Ciencia para ver si esto se podría llevar a los colegios.
And it's an experiment to see if you could take something that would happen in a hackerspace and see if that would work in a school.
Es un experimento de tomar algo que pasaría en un hackerspace y ver si funciona en el colegio.
And it's difficult because it's dangerous, hard to teach, and there are a number of different challenges. So in this project, we're working on trying to make that work because the education system in the United States is terrible.
Es difícil porque es peligroso, es difícil de enseñar y además es desafiante porque el sistema de educación de Estados Unidos es terrible.
Okay, another project is the cockroach-controlled mobile robot, and I'm actually right after this, I'm going and exhibiting this in Moscow. So I'm still working on this project.
Otro proyecto es la cucaracha robot controlada. Este proyecto no está terminado, pero voy a mostrar después de estar aquí en Chile, en Moscú.
And I'll show a video of it.
Cockroach-controlled mobile robot is an experimental robotic system that uses a live insect as the controller or driver of a three-wheeled robot. The robot is controlled by a giant Madagascan hissing cockroach, about 5 centimeters or 2 inches in length. The insect is placed on top of a modified computer trackball with an adjustable harness that helps the insect stay on top of the ball. The ball operates like a 2-axis treadmill that controls the motion of the larger robot. As the cockroach moves forward on the ball, the robot moves forward. If the cockroach scurries to the left, the robot moves to the left. If the cockroach scurries to the right, the robot moves to the right. The robot also features a navigation and sensor system to help the insect avoid smashing the robot into nearby objects. An array of distance sensors looks out in front of the robot. When an object is a few feet in front of the robot, the sensors detect the object and shine lights toward the insect from the direction of the obstacle. Banks of small lights are positioned around the front of the cockroach in an attempt to build an immersive virtual environment. Since cockroaches tend to avoid light, the insect should, in theory, turn into the dark and therefore steer the robot away from obstacles. This project is inspired by 3 key influences. First, biomimetics, an approach to technological development that looks toward living organic systems as a source of inspiration. Specifically within the field of robotics, cockroaches are admired and used as models for the navigation logic and physical construction of mobile robotic systems. Second, the cyborg. Popular culture appears to have a recurring interest in the human-machine and animal-machine hybrid. This project strives to construct a literal cybernetic organism that plays in and off of cultural and scientific visions of synthetic and organic hybridity. Thirdly, the computational and biological. This project, in essence, is a robotic system in which the computer-based microcontroller is replaced by a biologically based insect. In the process, the operating machine highlights key characteristics of being biological. The robot and insect display attributes like unpredictability, laziness, irrationality, and emotional response. The mobility of the robot makes the intentions of the insect legible to a wide and diverse audience. Individuals tend to watch the robot for extended periods of time, empathizing with the insect and trying to discern whether or not the organism is controlling or being controlled by the technology, and whether it's aware of, immersed in, or pleased by its synthetic and mediated environment.
Okay, so that's the cucaracha robotica.
Esa- 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 esa-
So the way it works is that a real insect drives the machine.
Funciona con un insecto real que maneja la máquina.
In the study of robotics, insects and cockroaches are very much admired and used as inspiration to build robots.
En el estudio de robótica, insectos y cucarachas son usados como inspiración para construir robots.
So in this project, I say, if the cockroaches are so great, why not use an actual cockroach?
En este proyecto yo digo, bueno, si las cucarachas son tan geniales, ¿por qué no usar una real cucaracha?
And I should say that the cockroaches, I take very good care of them, feed them organic lettuce, and they're only on the robot for a short period of time. And the only time that I've had any of them die is when I fed them Carl's Jr., which is like McDonald's. I fed the cockroaches some McDonald's food and they died.
Debo decir que las cuido muy bien, les doy lechuga orgánica, que solo las pongo tiempos cortos, y la única vez que murieron cucarachas fue cuando les di algo como McDonald's. Les di McDonald's y murieron.
And it's actually because there are lots of pesticides to kill bugs on all the lettuce and tomatoes.
Y es porque hay muchos pesticidas para matar bichos en la lechuga y los tomates.
Okay. Okay, now this is a project that that I actually started when talking to Mitch.
Este es un proyecto que inicié conversando con Mitch.
It's called Critical Making.
Se llama Critical Making, haciendo críticamente. La traducción.
We were at a event and place kind of like this, a festival in China, and I was doing electronics workshops, and Mitch was also doing electronics workshops.
Estamos en un evento como este en China, en una especie de carnaval, y yo estaba haciendo talleres de electrónica y Mitch también estaba haciendo talleres de electrónica.
And and this is the booklet that I was doing, the electronics with toys and children.
El libro que yo estaba haciendo, el libro para niños y juguetes y circuit bend.
Look at that guy. Who is that guy?
Mírenlo,
Who's a
¿quién es?
weirdo? I was sitting on the lawn with Mitch, and we were talking about things happening in hackerspaces and what's going on generally.
Estábamos sentados con Mitch conversando sobre cosas que pasaban en hackerspaces y todo lo que estaba sucediendo en general.
And he had told me, like what he said in his talk, that he had decided to not participate in the Maker Faire because of the military funding of Make magazine. And we started talking about that, and it came up that there are a lot of really interesting kind of issues related to hackerspaces, making that aren't normally in Make magazine.
Estábamos conversando de lo que mencionó Mitch en su charla respecto a cómo decidió no participar más en Maker Fairs por el financiamiento de Make y Maker Faire que recibieron de la milicia de Estados Unidos. Y resultó que terminamos conversando de cómo hay ciertos problemas que están en el mundo de los hackerspace, de makers, que no aparecen en la revista Make.
And so we started talking, and we had the idea of doing like an old-fashioned zine, like a photocopied book that was like what skateboarders make, what people make for bands or different things, and to have like an old-fashioned thing that was just photocopied and inexpensively done.
Estamos conversando de hacer una revista tipo bajo presupuesto, media underground, al estilo de los fanzines, que son revistas que se hacen sobre el fanatismo de movimientos culturales como bandas de música y queríamos hacerla sencilla y como anticuada y que fuera de bajo costo.
And it also would be interesting to explore things that wouldn't be in Make Magazine, things that involve controversial, more controversial issues than you would find in Make Magazine.
Y pensamos que sería interesante exponer ahí cosas que no se podían encontrar en la revista Make, cosas quizás más controversiales, que no podían estar en esta revista.
And not just controversial things, but how to make the world a better place.
Y no solo controversiales, sino cómo hacer que el mundo sea un lugar mejor.
And then we both left China, and I went back to California and I started thinking about this.
Los dos nos fuimos de China, yo volví a California y me puse a pensar en esto.
And looked into how Make Magazine was, who reads Make Magazine. And something that's interesting is that Make Magazine is quite a rich publication where the average reader has a household income of over $100,000.
US dollars.
Yeah.
Empecé a investigar quiénes eran los lectores de Make Magazine después de estas conversaciones con Mitch y me di cuenta que el lector promedio tiene un ingreso de $106,000.
And so I started playing around with different ideas
Entonces empecé a jugar con distintas ideas
and thinking about what the maker movement doesn't have.
y empecé a pensar qué le falta, qué es lo que no tiene el movimiento maker.
And so I started, I got out Photoshop and I started playing around in Photoshop with trying to think of ideas for what an alternative to Make Magazine would be like.
Me conseguí Photoshop y empecé a jugar con ideas de cómo sería una alternativa a la revista Make.
And I did this.
Y hice esto.
And if you can translate some of the things.
Y esto fue lo que hice. En vez de Make dice hecho, tecnología en tiempo de ocio. Únete a la revolución de Arduino, pero evita la desobediencia civil. Haz este rocket DARPA. 3 horas. Empieza el despegue.
And so this was kind of fun and I ended up making stickers.
Fue divertido y terminé haciendo stickers.
But this wasn't exactly what I wanted to do with magazine. It's just make fun of Make Magazine. I wanted to do something more productive.
Esto no era mi intención, quería hacer algo productivo, pero era divertido, o sea, me estaba burlando un poco de la revista Make y era divertido.
So and also I come from an art background and design background, and there's a lot of different ideas that come from art and design that have to do with thinking about what you're making.
También yo tengo una enseñanza en arte, o sea, educación en arte y diseño, y hay muchas ideas de ese tipo de enseñanza que tienen que ver con pensar en lo que estás haciendo.
So I liked this one term, critical making. It's like the combination of critical thinking with thinking and doing at the same time.
Me gustó este concepto de hacer críticamente, critical making, es una combinación de como pensamiento crítico, critical thinking, pero es de hacer y pensar al mismo tiempo.
See, it wasn't working for you because you weren't standing close enough. Okay. And so what I did is I took a piece of an envelope, wrote down a bunch of names of interesting people that I thought would be really cool for a new magazine, and I put it on Facebook and tagged all of them.
Entonces lo que hice fue tomar un sobre y empezar a escribir los nombres de personas que me parecían interesantes para que escriban un artículo en una revista. Tomé la foto de este sobre, lo puse en Facebook y etiqueté a todos.
So it started on Facebook.
Empezó en Facebook.
And I made up a more lengthy suggested table of contents.
Hice una tabla de contenido más larga.
And people started saying that they would send me things.
Y la gente empezó a decir que me iban a mandar cosas.
And people started sending me
Y me
things.
empezaron a llegar cosas, me mandaron cosas.
Lots and lots of things. I got 50 different authors that sent me things with over 350 pages.
Me llegaron más de 350 páginas de 50 autores distintos a raíz de esto.
A lot of people came from, were professors and academics.
Muchos eran profesores y académicos.
And a lot of them sent me things like this,
Muchos me mandaron cosas como esta.
which is interesting because normally academics don't do things like this with paper and glue and glitter.
Lo que es interesante porque por lo general los académicos no hacen cosas así con papel y pegamento y brillo.
And it was really interesting.
Fue muy interesante.
People sent me pictures of them as children making things.
La gente me mandó fotos de ella haciendo cosas cuando eran niños.
People sent me things that were sexual.
Me mandaron cosas sexuales.
People sent me pictures of remote and kind of poor locations where people made interesting things.
Me mandaron fotos de lugares remotos y pobres donde las personas hacían cosas interesantes,
Historical things,
cosas históricas,
things in different languages.
cosas en lenguas distintas.
This is in the North American Aboriginal language of Cree.
Este es el lenguaje aborigen de Norteamérica.
This actually is interesting because it's the idea of making an entire programming language around an Aboriginal language that has a very, very different concept of things and places and being. It would be completely different programming language.
Sería hacer con una lengua completamente distinta un lenguaje de programación. Y como la lengua es distinta, tiene noción de concepto, cosas y seres diferentes, entonces el lenguaje de programación cambiaría bastante.
More languages, this is in Danish.
Esto está en danés.
Things related to design.
Cosas relacionadas con diseño.
Things from traditional philosophers that would send me handwritten notes.
Cosas de filósofos tradicionales que me mandaran notas escritas a mano.
Stuff that was dripping with paint.
Cosas que estaban con pintura chorreándose.
Mazes.
Laberintos.
And other things that were just lots of interesting things.
Muchas cosas interesantes.
And so in the end, lots and lots of people sent me things.
Al final mucha gente me mandó cosas.
Even Mitch sent me something there, see?
Incluso Mitch me mandó algo.
And then I put it all together
Luego lo junté todo
using a photocopier and tape and scissors.
usando una fotocopiadora y scotch y tijeras.
And printed it all up,
Lo imprimí todo,
folded it all,
lo doblé todo,
stapled, cut,
corcheteé, corté
and finished it.
y lo terminé.
And I made 300 copies
E hice 300 copias
of 3,000 booklets, 300 sets of 10 books. if that makes
Son
sense.
3.000 cuadernillos, 300 sets de 10 cuadernillos.
And so part of what I want to do here with the people here is work on a booklet together that we talk about the projects that you're all working on.
Y lo que quería hacer aquí es un taller donde pudiéramos hacer un fanzine de este tipo, donde podrían poner los proyectos en los que están trabajando ustedes.
And also the people that are working with
Y la
Mitch.
gente que trabaja
Yeah.
con Mitch en su taller también.
Okay. So it was over 100,000 pages. It was
100.000
terrible.
páginas. Fue terrible.
I won't show that. It just flips through all the books. So, like I said, what I'd like to do here is have a look at what's happening here in Santiago in this space. What makes this space really unique and what things are happening here.
Lo que me gustaría hacer acá sería ver qué es lo que está pasando y qué es lo que hace este espacio único, qué es lo que está pasando aquí en Santiago MakerSpace.
So the idea is that we will work together and design and print a book. I don't know if that's, I just copied that from Facebook. I don't know what that means. So.
That's mine.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yo lo escribí en mi Facebook, claro.
And so I think, I'm not sure what I'm even going to call this yet. I don't think this is going to be called critical making. I think it's going to be called Inside Hackerspaces. And the idea is that this would be the first of a number of booklets where I could go around to different places and document and interview what people are doing and then make it like an old-fashioned type of zine.
No sé cómo va a llamar este proyecto, no se va a llamar Critical Making, pero creo que se va a llamar Inside Hackerspaces, al interior de los Hackerspaces, y este sería el proyecto que queríamos acá, sería el primero de uno de estos libritos que después convertirían en una colección de fanzines anticuadas como las de Critical Making.
So, yeah, what's going on here?
¿Qué está pasando acá?
There's lots of interesting things.
Hay muchas cosas interesantes.
So we'll figure out how to build it and design the magazine, and we'll print it, and by the end of the week we'll have finished magazines, and hopefully we'll have it all scanned and available for people to download and print for free.
Averiguaremos cómo diseñar la revista e idealmente para el final de la semana estaría escaneado y listo para que la gente pueda ver y bajar de internet gratis.
And so if you have a background in bookmaking, book binding, graphic design, or just have interesting projects, I invite you to come.
Si tienen alguna experiencia en hacer libros o en lo que es encuadernación, diseño o proyectos, los invito a asistir a mi taller.
Because in my critical making book series, I didn't have a lot of time to make a custom laser cut cover, you know, or a 3D printed cover, or a special binding or something. So we could really, and I don't really know what shape this is going to take, so we could really work together to try to make something really special.
Porque en mi libro Critical Making no tuve tiempo para hacer una portada hecha con una cortadora láser o la portada hecha en la impresora 3D, pero esta vez creo que podríamos, no sé cómo va a resultar, pero se nos podría ocurrir algo bien especial.
So if you have crazy ideas, come.
Si tienen ideas de mentes, vengan.
Now this is another thing that I'm working on, and we started working on this yesterday.
Este otro proyecto en el que estoy trabajando, empezamos a trabajar en esto ayer.
And this is like a mapping, mobile computing, sensing, bicycling project.
Es un proyecto de mapear y say again.
Bicycles and computers.
Computadores y mapear y bicicletas y todas esas cosas.
So,
Entonces,
the plan is that we're going to ride bicycles across Santiago and in this path. And actually yesterday we did half of it.
el plan es recorrer Santiago en este trazo, en este recorrido, y de hecho ayer hicimos la mitad.
Yeah, and we used Android applications and lots of phones.
Y usamos muchos teléfonos y aplicaciones Android.
But we also have, I'm working on a new thing with Raspberry Pi
Pero
computer.
también estoy trabajando en algo nuevo con Raspberry Pi.
So right now, the first phase of this is to record internet addresses.
Lo primero de esto, la primera fase de esto sería grabar direcciones
Actually,
de
Wi-Fi,
internet.
Wi-Fi.
O sea, direcciones de Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi names the base station or hubs, I don't know how you'd call it. It's an interesting way that people kind of communicate with their nearby neighbors.
Los nombres de Wi-Fi es una manera interesante que la forma se comunica con sus vecinos más cercanos.
So we are recording that as a way to get an idea of Santiago.
Estamos grabando eso para obtener una idea de Santiago.
So kind of a portrait of Santiago through just the names of how people name their Wi-Fi.
Es un retrato de Santiago solo por los nombres que le pone la gente a su Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's the wrong button. Okay. So this is the map.
Este es el mapa.
The makerspace is at the eye there,
Makerspace está en la I,
right there.
ahí mismo.
See? And then this is Lorena there.
Esta es Lorena.
And we're staying at a place called Artec that's near that McDonald's.
Nosotros nos estamos quedando en Artec, que está cerca de ese McDonald's.
There's a Unimark store there too.
Hay un Unimark también.
And so we bicycled half of this yesterday.
Hicimos la mitad en bicicleta ayer.
And we got bicycles from La Bicicleta Verde.
Conseguimos bicicletas de la bicicleta verde.
And they gave us free bicycles.
Y nos dieron bicicletas gratis.
And I have I'm here with my beautiful wife and our small son, who maybe you saw him running around earlier. He's navigating, helping me navigate, and he's on the bicycles with us.
Ahí está con mi hijo, nos ayuda a navegar, o sea, a ver el mapa, y están las bicicletas con nosotros, conmigo y mi esposa.
And we've really got to see very interesting parts of Santiago that we wouldn't have seen if we just would have gone to, the market and then the government building. We've got to see very interesting streets, houses, people having barbecues, and lots of interesting stuff.
Vimos partes muy interesantes de Santiago que no hubiéramos visto si hubiéramos ido al mercado y a ver el edificio, o sea, el Palacio de la Moneda.
And this is the unfiltered information that I've collected, and each one of those dots is a Wi-Fi hotspot, and I need to still filter it, but this is part of the data. That's part of the T, the I, the A, G, O. There's other lines here when we came from the airport or took the bus or taxi, and I have to filter those out. But you can see the A, G, O there.
Está la información no filtrada de todos los hotspots de Wi-Fi que logré escanear. Ahí puedes ver la A, la G y la O. Ahí aparecen también hotspots de Wi-Fi que no son parte de eso, pero las tengo que filtrar.
And the information, and this is kind of not a very high quality video, but what I'll be doing is making it so you can browse through this information in a 3D, kind of a Google Earth way. It's really interesting when you go and start looking at all the information.
Lo que haré es que se pueda navegar por toda la información de una manera tipo Google Earth en 3D.
Yeah. So you'll be able to see all of the names.
Puedes ver todos los nombres de los Wi-Fi.
It's kind of embarrassing.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, Google's doing it whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the red dots and the green ones?
That has to do with, in this, it has to do with the type of security system that the Wi-Fi networks have. I may not actually show it like that, but you can tell which ones have password protection and which ones are open. So that's what the colors mean in the video. Another thing that I've been working on that I just got, and I haven't even plugged it in to test, is a pollution sensor.
Otra cosa en la que estoy trabajando y que ni siquiera he conectado es un sensor de contaminación.
And this could run in a very similar way to, instead of scanning for Wi-Fi, could scan for checking the air quality.
Esto funciona muy parecido a escanear Wi-Fi, pero en vez de eso revisaría la calidad del aire.
I can pass this around.
Si quieren puedo pasarlo para que lo miren.
But what's interesting, I mean, Wi-Fi is interesting, and there's something kind of fun there, or maybe mischievous, looking at what people's networks are called. But with air quality, it's also very interesting because there's not a lot of really articulate sampling of air quality in a lot of cities.
Trabajar con escaneo de Wi-Fi es interesante y es travieso, pero entretenido, pero en el caso con la calidad del aire no hay registros muy precisos respecto a la calidad del aire en las ciudades.
Yeah, sort of similar to Mitch's image of the Japanese radiation.
Parecido a lo de la radiación en Japón que mostró Mitch.
And that's the box there. So if people are familiar with Linux and want to help me out and want to work with this sensor, come and talk to me.
Si la gente aquí conoce Linux y conocen este sensor y quieren ayudar, vengan a hablar conmigo.
And there's me testing it out
Y ahí estoy
this
yo probándolo,
afternoon, right outside, right on that street.
justo afuera.
And in addition to the installing and doing something here, on Sunday night, I'm going to show some of this stuff at this small gallery called Artec in Lorena by the Unimark store.
Además de hacer cosas acá, voy a exhibir algunas de esas cosas en esta galería de arte llamada Artec, cerca de Unimark, en Lorena. La reina. Ah, ¿qué dice Lorena? Lorena, ahí en la calle, la reina.
And that's all.
Y eso sería todo.
And I have some of these here if people are interested in looking at them as well. But they're packaged up, but I'll rip them open later and we can look at them and have a drink. Any questions?
¿Preguntas?
Yes.
You showed in one of the first slides, it was something that was circuit bending as media archaeology.
Yeah?
What was that about?
That was something that was done at Transmediale in Berlin. And I had been working on some papers with somebody I know related to reusing electronics and reviving of old kind of electronics, intentionally using very old things. And so we were trying to bring together this idea of media archaeology, or like studying old things, with the idea of artwork and electronics and repurposing of obsolete things. I don't know if you want to translate that. Yeah.
Ah, sí, dale.
Como artista, digamos, en ese lugar del artista, ¿qué tan importante es para ti que el artista construya sus propias interfaces o sus propios dispositivos electrónicos para la obra o para la instalación?
As an artist, how important is it to you that the artist builds his own interfaces and hardware and electronic displays for his own work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I used to be thinking very much that you had to do everything yourself. You have to do absolutely everything yourself. And I think it's very, I have sort of less respect for artists who just get all their stuff done by somebody else, because they don't have there's not a craftsmanship and skill in their building. But, and I don't know if you want to translate this in chunks.
I want to translate.
But as I get older and lazier, I am, and I've sort of gone back and forth. I mean, with electronics, you can get to an absurd level of, let's say there's a high level thing where it's just a plug and play thing, medium level Arduino, lower level working with your own microcontroller, lower level than that you're working with assembler code, lower level than that you're digging in the dirt for copper, making up your own circuit, and you can go all the way down where you're working with rocks to make circuits, which is actually, some people do that, which is brilliant, but that's another story. So you can always go lower and lower and lower and lower into the technology. And at a certain point, you need to get the project done. So I think that you need, I mean, I tend to think that if you're doing artwork that's interesting, you'll be forced to make your own technology. Or if you're making your own products, you know, you're going to have to design and build your own thing. Otherwise, somebody would have done it before. So I think to summarize, the short abridged version, is that if you're doing good work, you're going to be forced to make your own stuff. And the only person that's going to really care about that is you. And then you need to roll up your sleeves and try to figure that out. It's either that, or you have to have a whole lot of money to pay somebody else to do it.
Or make a team.
Or make a team. Yeah, that's true.
En resumen,
Sorry, that was long.
Si quieres hacer la obra bien, tú con toda la delicadeza que tenías en la intención, vas a tener que arremangarte las mangas y trabajar en eso, porque a nadie le va a importar de la misma manera que a ti el resultado, a menos de que tengas mucha plata y puedas pagarle a un montón de gente para que lo haga por ti, la parte más como difícil. Y lo otro, lo que decía Blanca, es que puedes trabajar en equipo también, y es una opción.
Like, even for this booklets I made, I went to go get a quote on printing up 300 booklets, and it was like $6,000 was the cheapest I could find to print it and staple it and cut it the way that I wanted. And so it's like, I'm not doing that. So I got an old photocopier that somebody had thrown away. I fixed it, I worked on it, and for me that was interesting part of that whole project. And I didn't plan on becoming an expert in paper or stapling, but now I know I know a ton about paper, folding paper, stapling. So.
You want me to translate?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
No, it's interesting. Lo de, sí, o sea.
Did you fold them all yourself?
No, I did not. My beautiful wife helped fold it, and I paid a small army of children that are mine, very small amounts of money, to teach them the value of hard work.
En resumen, bueno, él vio, o sea, cotizó cuánto salía a imprimir los 300 sets de libros y salía $6.000. Y dijo, no voy a hacer eso, no voy a pagar $6.000. Entonces tomó una impresora, la arregló para poder usarla él y no planificó hacerse un experto en corchetear y en papel, pero ahora sabe mucho de papel y usó, o sea, pero lo ayudaron su mujer y un ejército de niños que aprendieron lo que es trabajar duro doblando papel.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Y en ese proceso de tomar esa decisión de hacer las cosas por ti mismo, ¿te encuentras también con una decisión crítica o política respecto de comprar?
In this process where you make the decision of making things yourself, is there a critical point of view about buying stuff, about making a decision of not buying, or?
Yes. And I think there's a lot of stuff in hackerspaces, maker scene, that has to do with people being tired of buying, you know, Walmart caca. You know, they're tired of just buying stuff that they don't care about. And they're more interested in making something that's meaningful to them. And I think of it like how I have a rolling pin that my dad had made as a small kid. I have a spoon that my grandfather carved, you know, that I have in my kitchen. I have, you know, an old frying pan from my grandmother. Things like that, things that are important, you know. And I see a lot of what's happening in hackerspaces as people trying to make things that are important to them.
Sí, tiene que ver con no comprar y ve que el movimiento maker y lo que pasa en los hackerspaces tiene mucho que ver con que la gente está aburrida de comprar chatarra de Walmart o de Líder y quieren crear ellos mismos cosas que les guste, que les interese, cosas que quieran cuidar. Y da el ejemplo que tiene una cuchara que hizo un pariente o su abuela creó un cuchillo especial y todas esas cosas se valoran más y se cuidan mucho más que las cosas que uno no hace.
Sí, en el mismo sentido de lo que planteaba ella, los límites políticos, yo te plantearía el tema de los límites ecológicos, ¿no? Es decir, ¿cuáles son las restricciones que existen, ¿no? Restricciones ecológicas, medioambientales, frente a la producción tecnológica hecha a través del modelo médico?
He asked that what are the ecological restrictions that are happening, like if you have a restriction to not buy stuff because you don't care about them, are there ecological restrictions that are happening in hackerspaces and the maker movement, and which are these restrictions, if they are happening? Maybe they're not.
Formal restrictions or personal?
Formal, personal.
Restricciones éticas, ideológicas, políticas frente al uso, por ejemplo, al uso de materiales, por ejemplo, y a la producción de residuos.
Ethical, politic restrictions about the use of certain materials that could be that could damage your health, or yeah, that's what he's asking.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Dice que no sabe.
I think it depends on the place and people. The whole idea of hackerspaces, they're all very different. And I think that some places would be very sensitive to not having any lead in your solder, and be very sensitive to melting plastic smells and things like that. And other places probably it doesn't matter.
Dice que depende mucho del lugar ahí. La parte de los hackerspaces es que son muy diversos, entonces hay unos lugares donde las personas son muy sensibles al olor, el hecho de derretir plástico, pero en otros lugares simplemente no importa mucho, no les importa.
Yeah.
Con respecto a los talleres que hace, esos que lleva a ciertos lugares como para niños o para gente con escasos recursos, o sea, como que desde nuestra vereda, desde los que estamos acá y que entendemos todo este mundo, como que nos hace súper alto sentido llevar toda esta tecnología a esos niños o a esa gente. Y la pregunta es ¿por qué? O sea, capaz que nosotros ya lo tenemos claro, pero ¿por qué él lo hace y por qué, por ejemplo, él hace una crítica de critical making o en esa revista Make a los objetos hechos con esta tecnología, pero al final se la estamos llevando también a los niños?
Regarding the workshops you do with children and taking this obsolete technology, but technology whatsoever, to the children, he's asking why is it because he says people here in Chile have reasons to take this kind of workshops and technologies to people with children with low resources, but he's asking what are your motives, your personal motives, not because you're not in Chile, and if in critical making there's criticism to sort of technologies, he's asking why do you take these technologies to the children, but I think he didn't get.
His question is more referring at the value, depending on what we think about Make, the value of what Make does in the sense of opening to children, technology for giving kids, so kids get more involved.
Yeah. For me, I wanted to find something that was low cost, that was interesting, and got children excited to have the permission to just open something up. A lot of them have never even used a screwdriver, and just found it very interesting to be able to get a different perspective on the inside of something and look at it and go, oh, somebody actually made this. Oh, I can actually change this. I can take something and I can try to become a part of that. And so in the project, the idea is that the hope is that this ends up having people be more encouraged to go do more stuff on their own, to kind of have permission to explore things.
Quería tomar algo que fuera barato, quisiera que los niños se entusiasmaran al respecto, que son estos juguetes, y quería que al abrirlo, porque la mayoría no habían tomado un desatornillador en su vida, y al abrirlo se dan cuenta, alguien hizo esto, no es que apareció de forma mágica, sino que alguien lo hizo, y lo puedo modificar, lo puedo cambiar. Entonces la idea es incentivar a los niños a que quieran hacer ellos sus propias cosas.
Tu pregunta iba como ¿por qué promueve el movimiento maker y por qué lo critica?
No, era más o menos lo que se...
Había dos partes.
Había dos partes, sí.
It was a two-part question. One was this.
Oh.
And the other is the critics made to make magazine. But I think that the critic is not about Make or what Make is promote. I think that is great. The critic is Make is taking funds from a military agency. I mean that's the problem. It's not intrinsic. And then maybe there's
No, era exactamente lo que me respondió. Pero I have another question.
Dale no.
Y si Mitch puede responder, porque tiene que ver con hackers.
For you, Mitch.
Y Anne for como tú hablabas del Walmart Junk, también uno pasa a recibir, como open source pasa a ser otro tipo de mercado, un nuevo mercado, empezamos también a recibir y a necesitar cosas que capaz no necesitamos. muchas veces uno se pilla con gente que quiere hacer un nuevo proyecto y sin pensar dos veces compra un Arduino. Porque el Arduino parece ser lo que sí o sí vamos a necesitar usar y al final lo estamos comprando y estamos juntando basura electrónica de nuestra propia autoría. Como los hackerspaces en general, los que yo he visto e investigado en internet, todos tienen un MakerBot o todos tienen una cortadora láser, ¿son realmente necesarios? ¿Por qué están ahí? ¿O al final es porque nos consumimos una nueva forma de consumo?
So he's asking about, he's giving us an example about the Walmart junk you mentioned. He says sometimes being open source and with your own projects, sometimes you start needing things that you didn't need before, and maybe for your project, you said, I need an Arduino because you think it's the solution, but then you start having this electronic junk that you think, I need all the sensors and stuff like that. And he's asking, and he's saying in hackerspaces there are 3D printers, laser cutters, and he's asking if, are people really using it? Do you really need a 3D printer, or is it just, or are we getting used to needing more things that you're not gonna use just like the other cases?
Yeah, that's a good question. And for 3D printers, I've never liked 3D printers. and partially because don't really get excited about plastic. If it was in metal, I would be extremely excited. But it's true that the whole maker and DIY community creates a whole bunch of other products and things that people buy. And it's a big industry, which Mitch is the king of. No, Brie Pettis is, well, that's another story. But I forget the question. What was the question?
The summary of the question is, we are not turning ourselves, that we really, I mean, we make it this consumerism in Walmart and so on.
New consumerism,
it's a new consumerism. I mean,
sure.
We consuming Arduinos,
oh yeah.
kits and things, and we buy more than we can actually make. So we end up buying more stuff that we actually make.
Yeah, and you can. There's a lot. I mean, some of the best and most interesting projects with people, they will make a car out of popsicle sticks, like very low tech kind of ways that don't really use any electronics. I think if you just throw 3D printing, an Arduino, and LEDs at a project, doesn't necessarily make it better. And you have to have some thought behind it. It's like, okay, it's very exciting making an LED blink. No, it is. It's intoxicating making an LED blink.
Addiction.
But then after you do that, it's like, what am I going to do with this LED? That's a harder problem. And that's where you get into issues like, what are you going to do in the world? Or how do you design something?
Mitch, you want to say something because he wanted you in the answer?
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
How a debate.
Yeah, no, it's important to think about these things because corporations that are just selling to Walmart are doing it merely for profit, only for profit, profit only. Nothing to do with making anyone's life better, nothing to do with making the world better, profit. Profit doesn't make anyone's life better ever. Never has, never will. But if people are doing things because they love it, it almost doesn't matter what the end result is because they're going to learn a lot from it. They'll find meaning in doing what they're doing. And if they're sharing it in a supportive community, then other people are going to have the enthusiasm and the creativity, which is contagious. So I think it's a really big difference. But we do have to continually evaluate, do we love this? Like if someone totally loves like 3D printers, and then they start cranking them out, and suddenly they're taking money from the military, and they close it off to make more profit, and then they sell to some company that has all these patents and closes things off further. Do they still love it? That's up to that person to decide. seems to me they're kind of going away from what they love and going more and more into profit. But I can't second guess other people beyond, well, I just did. But yeah, so I think we all have to do that for ourselves, though.
But what if you love making money? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I don't think anyone does, because you know, if you're making money, if you don't have enough money, then it's conducive to not being very happy because you don't have enough resources in your life in a capitalist society. But if you have enough and you keep making more money, then you're not doing what you love because you're just making money and taking time away from your life doing something useless.
But do you ever get the comment where people say, well, yeah, that's great to do what you love, but isn't that kind of like a privileged kind of position to be in, that you have the time to pursue things? Have people commented
Yes,
like that?
But if someone has time to do what they love, why is that a bad thing?
No, it's not a bad thing. I'm just thinking from the other perspective, from somebody that's very poor and just working very hard just to eat.
Yeah, well, if you don't have enough.
Then it makes it difficult to say, well, do what you love. It's like, well, okay, I'd like to do what I love, but I'd like to eat more.
It's really important to have enough resources in our lives. If we don't have enough resources for basic human existence, then we're going to probably be unhappy.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but it's conducive to being unhappy. But it's about resources and not money. So
Yeah.
I've been going around the world in places that have nothing, like Detroit, and Cairo, places in Cairo, and places in other developing places in the world. If people are focusing on the money, then they are going to be totally oppressed by the people paying them the money. Because they're focusing on the money and they go and work for some fucking corporation. If anyone cares about my language, I'm sorry. But yeah, and this is part of what makes the world a terrible place for everybody. But if people, with whatever time and resources they have to explore what they love, that is something that's going to help not only them, but the people around them. Because if there are all these people that go, oh, I have kids now, I have to do what's important and make money for my kids' education and whatever, if they're middle or upper class, or just get enough food for them. But regardless, if people are doing that, what are they teaching their kids? They're teaching their kids that money is more important than a mom or a dad or a guardian or whatever being with their kid, time with them. And money is more important than actually doing what you love, So, there's no easy answers. I mean, we do live in a non-ideal world.
Yeah.
Can I ask something? What about if you do what you love, but it just doesn't sell because sometimes the market's small, right? And you start doing what you love, and it's not gonna sell ever. You start just starving on it. You start resenting what you love. That can happen.
You no longer love it, do you? And try to do something else.
No, but
we can have not just one thing, but like 12 things.
Right.
Together.
So maybe
we can just work part-time instead of full-time
yeah.
at some place. Maybe all those things add up to enough money to make a living, whatever. But if it just becomes about the money, it's not what we love.
Can I say something?
Good.
I think this has to do with the issue of creating art instead of creating useful things, and how expensive your art is to create, not to sell, to create. So there's an alternative cost to it. That's why it's like a luxury thing that some privileged people can do. But if you look at it from another point of view, no matter how poor a place is, there's always artists coming out from there. So it's a human tendency to create something even if it's not useful. But there's also a privilege for some to create very expensive things that require a lot of materials and processes, and that's probably a privilege, but it's not really bad. But it is questionable because maybe an art piece, just making it, even if it won't sell, will cost, I don't know, the same amount than feeding 1,000 people. So, but that issue is old. I think it doesn't have to do with the maker movement or anything. It's a new version of creation. That's all.
I see it in a very, I mean, if I look at you know, a very specific case, which is what I ended up doing what I love, that I don't love anymore. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, but I if you ask me what I wanted to do when I was a kid, was making games. I was playing with computers in the 80s, and then I ended up, after I went backward with something else, I decided to jump on that. I ended up spending 10 years making what I love, which is games. And by consequence, not because I looked for, I just wanted to make games, don't make money, but by consequence, I made a lot of money. But that was a consequence of being passionate about what I was obsessed to do. Mm. And I always think that, you know, that's the key. If you search for money, that's a very bad, you know, aim. You need to search for what you love and what you're passionate about, and instantly that amount of focus and loving to something will ultimately bring you something valuable. So for you, for your question, sometimes if you're persistent, I mean, it's not easy. For me, it was not easy. For nobody, it's easy. But if you persist, and then I think there is a big difference between the guys who actually achieve their dreams and the guys who are, it's persistent and consistency. That's what I want to do. And then after that, you realize that that's the key. It's not that, oh, I want to make this, I mean, millions of dollars, and then I need to figure out how. It's about that level of passion. And then eventually, what you're doing, like in my case, making games, is not fun anymore.
Why not?
Because I'm inside a fucking corporation, and that's not exactly what I look. I mean, I hate those environments. And then you figure out what next, and then you figure out another passion. And then this I mean, this thing, which we all love, and that's what we are all here. And then you focus that, and you put, and that's why I'm so passionate, and I'm so benevolent dictator, as you mentioned, but because I love this, and because I cannot let this, I want this to be great, you know, and you put a lot of love, and love also means passion and craziness, but I think that's it. And I think that's sort of the twist. At least from my perspective, at least, and that's how I me personally see that.
And it's also interesting because it's sort of like if you want to think of it like an institution of people trying to pursue things that they're really passionate about. That oftentimes universities or other organizations like that don't necessarily encourage, you know. And so I see hackerspaces as really interesting as an alternative type of education, because education is sort of falling apart all around the world. I mean, Google Santiago, and it comes up like all these student protests, you know. And that's that way. You could type in any city around the world, and it would be like that. There's a lot to be said about rethinking education, and I think that hackerspaces are an interesting or a good starting point.
So I think that it's getting late. Before you flew like 20 freaking hours to get here. So we are going to be here all week.
2 weeks for me.
2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks, so it's a lot. So hopefully you spread the word. I mean, you see the lecture. Oh, sorry.
Switch.
Van a estar acá 2 Vancouver. Ellos van a estar acá 2 semanas. Ustedes de una manera tuvieron una semana, hay actividades toda la semana. Ustedes tuvieron un poco el privilegio de conocerlos ahora y ojalá distribuyan un poco el cuento, porque la verdad que ojalá mucha más gente pueda aprovecharlo, porque son 2 personas fantásticas y tienen un montón de cosas que compartir. Van a estar teniendo la suerte de estar una semana acá, así que ojalá va a estar abierto y es gratis, así que ojalá distribuyan, que se corra la voz, que venga más gente para que lo pueda aprovechar más gente.
Hay unas inscripciones previas.
Sí, las inscripciones previas están pueden hacer están los links en la página de MakerSpace.
Movimientomaker.eventbrite.com.
Pero igual, obviamente, o sea, como